Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar session on training your people the right way. We're just going to give it 30 seconds or so to allow a number of people to join. We've got quite a good attendance list today and people are starting to come on. So we will be taking just short of 30 minutes, so hopefully we'll allow some time for questions. And in this webinar, we're going to be talking about some of the approaches that we're seeing and finding for training and development, and how you can support and upskill your workforce in what has become quite a rapid evolving HR world. And we'll look at some improving employee engagement and retention strategies. So it looks like we've got a good deal of people online now. So we'll start the broadcast. Firstly, just like to introduce myself. My name is Gabriella Barbara, and I've been in the HR and payroll sector for coming up 25 years. And whilst I talk a lot about Jemini, this webinar today is really about what we're seeing in the marketplace and some of those newer strategies we're seeing with learning and development. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Casey. Casey.
Hi guys, my name is Casey Glover. I'm a learning technical consultant within the Jemini team and looking to share some cool information today.
Thanks, Casey. So we will get underway. One of the things I wanted to talk about was really how organisations have had to adapt. And look, clearly COVID has had an indelible impact on HR, and our processes of learning is no exception to that over the last 18 months. So we're going to discuss how organisations are supporting and upskilling their people in this new environment, and how that ultimately leads to improving employee engagement and retention. So some of the key questions that we will look to answer through this next 30 minutes is: who is being trained? Where are my team at? How do I train them? What do they need? And how do we track compliance? So there's quite a bit to cover in this session this afternoon. I thought I would pop a picture up of the fifth discipline, and I'm sure many of you know of this book, and I find it truly fascinating that something that was written 27 years ago is still a great guide for organisations to understand that power of learning. The fifth discipline explains the 5 disciplines of personal mastery, mental modes, shared vision, team learning, and systems thinking. And they are still incredibly relevant today. So it's worth a look. It's true, though, that delivering learning is not just about plucking a course out of thin air and expecting a great response from our employees to uptake that learning. So we're going to talk quite a bit about that as well. So taking those 5 disciplines and considering them, how do you empower people to work at their very, very best in your organisation, both individually and collectively? If you haven't delivered learning before in your organisation, understanding the why behind the learning will certainly help you in formulating that learning, but also the employees to get excited about that learning. So I've actually picked on 5 core items here, which I think are very, very relevant. So when we talk about adaptability and change, and thinking now about the why, it's really important for employees to understand how that learning will help in times of change, in times of where we need to have additional skills to manage any transformations through the business. And then, of course, there's growth. So from a growth perspective, There's that personal growth that we want our employees to have, and obviously our team growth as our team work together collectively to address opportunities within the workforce. As a company, we want to increase our revenues, and also it may be that our organisation is growing in terms of scale. So from a growth perspective, there are a lot of reasons why we would promote learning. From a profit perspective, sustainability of our business. I mean, that's a key thing with learning and obviously training our people. I quite like the profit conversation because in the past we have seen learning as a cost, but if we change that around and think of learning as an investment and how we enable our people to develop new skills to do more in our organisation, and then potentially actually retain those people a little bit longer because they are getting that personal growth, because they are learning more skills, and because they are understanding more about our organisation, then the investment actually has a huge return in terms of the sustainability of our people. And then, of course, there's productivity. So doing what you do better. So it's another tool to think about employee engagement and how we can actually sell and promote that learning in our organisation. So just thought that you might be interested in having a look at those 4 concepts. And of course, then there's the how. And the how is a lot more than simply sending out a link or an email to the training opportunity that we have across our organisation. So yes, an organisation needs to understand the benefits of the training, the outputs, the opportunities. We need to understand our people and the best training approach for those people. By providing a learning framework for employees to engage with, it's important to have our managers obviously engaged and promoting that learning, and the HR leaders assisting on how the managers can develop so that the employees will adapt into that new learning organisation. So that assistance that we provide as HR leaders or as managers really does assist with the alignment of the organisational goals to those employees and to really stimulate the desire to take part in that learning. In many cases, we need to market out to our colleagues and our employees, impart that excitement around the learning program. So no matter what the solution that we provide to enable the learning, if we're just plonking it on top of their daily role, it might not be as successful as we would want it to be. So we need to talk about the value, and we need to encourage our people to look at the learning a little bit different than a chore, and more importantly, we need to allow those people time to actually do that learning as well. And of course, one of the most basics, what equipment are they actually doing that learning on? Especially if it's an e-learning. So have we enabled our employees to have a desktop experience, to make it easy, or provide a laptop and make that a fairly simple experience for them? And of course, don't underrate the value of gamification. Probably about 2 or 3 years ago, we heard a lot about gamification in the marketplace, in the HR world, and it's gone very quiet on that. However, it still truly is alive and well. So it's fair to say when we look at learning content and the pre-canned learning programs that are available, there are thousands of content libraries, LMSs. Content's king, right? But are they right for you? We've heard it before, quality, not quantity. We've certainly moved on since the LMSs of the 90s. Learning needs to be relevant to ensure that the engagement and uptake of our employees is as much as we want it to be. Now, for us in that market space, content creators now come at a relatively low cost, and the return on investment is incredibly high. And it's not just about branding, it's not just about sticking a logo on a course and it becomes very Fusion 5 or it becomes very ABC limited. It's actually about the content and the learning becoming very relevant to your organization. So it has your organization's processes embedded into it, and it's interactive, and even your own people in that learning where it's appropriate for that learning course. So this means that the employees can associate that relevance that they are doing on their day-to-day jobs. And then, of course, there's the most basic of necessities when it comes to the learning programs, is how we deliver it. So what mechanisms do we use? Do we use various solutions to provide different sorts of learning? Because you'll have your e-learning, you'll have your on-the-job, you will have endorsements, you might have coaching, you might have instructor-led, there'll be independent courses, there might be webinars. Then, of course, there's those courses that the employees themselves, if they're on their own learning journey, have decided that they want to do. And here's another one for you, blended learning or social learning and team learning approaches. So that is becoming more relevant, and some of the content creation tools can actually enable that. So having one framework and bringing that all together, because there's a lot of different learning mechanisms out there. So having one framework and bringing that all together in one learning experience environment certainly does have its benefits to be able to track where that learning is for your employees. So once we've understood our learning strategies, including how people learn, because everybody, we all learn differently. Some people like to actually get on hands-in, as we know, hands-on. Some people like to read. Some people like to learn on the job. So all different styles. So once we've actually understood the learning strategies and how people learn and what will be right for our people, how do we track it? How do we know the progress? For those that have not started, how do we follow up on those? Those that have started and not progressed, or maybe a bit stuck, how do we know that if they're not coming to us and telling us? How do we know who's completed? How do we know those that have enjoyed it or not, or got value out of it? And more importantly, how has it valued or benefited the team and the person and the organisation? So think of those 4 components we talked about: growth, productivity, transformation, profit. How do we know where our people are? So a question for you, Casey, what are you finding our customers are looking at in terms of their learning analytics wise?
Yeah, so we're seeing the obvious course completion, but we're also seeing the reports on the training hours. So how many hours is that employee doing, and what are their potential hours of their training? We also are seeing the expiry of courses. So do you need to repeat that course? Is a common report that's coming up. There's also a big demand for completing a course that then links to a set of skills, and are you competent in those skills for your role? And lastly, there's tracking of attendance as well for those instructor-led or webinars. Yep.
And of course, in addition to that, I'm guessing there's also CPD points, like professional registration points, and those sorts of things that we can track through the courses as well, and make sure the relevance of those registrations or certificates year on year.
Yeah, and another thing is tracking of feedback. So is the trainer providing the course, are they doing a good job, or the course content itself? The managers are willing to find out, are they delivering good content by gathering that kind of 360 feedback.
Yeah. And I know early on we had a couple of customers that were keen on the gamification, in terms of, if I remember rightly, you get 50 points, you get a coffee voucher, you get 100 points, you get a dinner out, and so forth. Now, I understand that didn't go ahead, but that is the sort of thing that we can offer through the training systems, isn't it, Casey?
Yeah, definitely.
You and I had a conversation around the 70-20-10 learning method and how we track that. 70% of their knowledge coming from experiences, assignments, coaching on the job, and then 20% from interactions and 10% from formal education events. How would a system such as Jemini manage that tracking?
So we'd look at how we can categorize those types, or so the different areas of training. So the content that's being delivered, is it a part of the 70 or the 20 or the 10, and then you can report and track based on those categorizations of training.
And of course, the key thing is here, no matter what type of learning styles you have or learning approaches you have in the organisation, is at some point there has to be an interaction with the system to record or report that you've actually done that type of style of learning. And I think what's wonderful is, yes, as a management team, we want to know that information. As leaders, we want to know that information. But also what's really good in a good HR solution is that the employee can actually go in and see their own insights and their own progress, and just see how much they've acquired in the time that they've been with the organisation. And actually don't forget about learning styles either. Again, Casey and I had a conversation on how do we actually know how our people learn? What are their, and I think we talked about, Casey, you could almost have a course or a quizzy within the solution to identify those different learning styles. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah, definitely. So are you a visual, auditory, or do you prefer to learn by doing? So and creating that content based around those types. Personally, I'm a lot more kinesthetic. I like doing, and much prefer that over than reading text. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do. And actually, one of the other learning practices we're seeing now, I can't remember how you referred to it. Was it mini courses?
Yeah, micro learning. So people are so busy with they're limited with time, and just having people, some with ADHD, the short attention spans. So we want to give them fast little bits of learning content, and that's becoming quite a trend now of watching, doing a little bit of learning that's no longer than 10 minutes.
And that's a really logical change in the learning environment. It's very, excuse me, sorry, asthma, not COVID. It's very usual for us now as a generation to speed read, or to read the first 2 or 3 lines of an email, and if it doesn't interest you, you move on. So actually having those micro learnings is really keeping pace with the evolution of how we do things. So the next piece, of course, in this is what we actually do with that learning. You know, it's not just learning for learning's sake. So when we invest in our people to learn additional skills or to get better at what they do or to understand organisational change and transformation, it brings a whole bundle of benefits, from our people feeling empowered to do new things and extend their abilities because of those new capabilities that they've developed, or grow and develop within our company into other roles and where there is alignment or where there is a need. So through this process, we may have some skills or licenses or qualifications that of course require regular view, and Casey mentioned that. And there could be compliance or certain certifications that may require, as I mentioned, professional development hours or points to be managed. So having this systemised so that all those pending dates of compliance, all those expirations or renewal courses that you can set up so that they automatically renew, ensures that we prepare and make sure our skills remain current. Making the time for the learning is a vitally important piece, and many organisations, including our own actually, advocate out learning at lunch sessions, knowledge bites, or even regularly, say, a Wednesday morning meeting where different topics are advocated for 30-minute sessions. And again, these can actually be tracked by sessions and a good learning experience solution, because so that you can track that attendance and track that learning. And when it comes to learn at lunches or knowledge bites, what a better way to learn than actually offering that out to colleagues or those that you're actually wanting to learn and train, because if they're actually taking a small 20 or 30-minute course, you know, they're going to learn by that doing. It also puts some fun around it and the opportunity to learn additional skills in and around functional skills. So in summary, I put through a few points, making it relevant. And I think for us, that's the piece that we are seeing most change in, is this relevance of courses and very specific courses being run than the generalized courses. And we've got so many really wonderful tools now in that marketplace to do that and make it successful. Giving time, creating opportunity to market it out, selling the sizzle, align it with the organisational goals and culture and strategies so that it becomes meaningful and people understand the why. And the way that we learn, blended learning, so different types of learning, which makes it interesting. So a curriculum of courses with different learning experiences, and team learning, the approach to manage and monitor and patting on the back and developing across a team, or a team actually attaining a learning goal together, which creates that team ownership internally. Gamification, so everyone loves a badge. Think of the social media and the number of badges you get. Or in fact, I was visiting a council site the other day, and because I had been a regular visitor, I got awarded a badge. You know, it's just those small sort of things which can actually really aid us on the learning journey. As much as we may not like to admit it, when an employee leaves our organisation, the employee themselves would like to say or benefit from a learning experience in the time that they've been with us. And, you know, that empowers employees on their next career choices. Obviously, or clearly, we would just hope that that investment might mean that they're actually with us a little bit longer, and that they might feel a loyalty toward us because that we've given the learning opportunities, that we're nurturing them, that it might give the employee a sense of belonging and provide that longer term employment. Another conversation here, because obviously there's so much more around retention strategies than just learning, or as it is these days, just the salary. But how wonderful it would be if they do move on, that they can pick up that learning and development that they've had with our organisation to support their career dreams. They've had time with us, they've become more skilled and more qualified and more able to give back. So we do have some time just for questions. If you would like to type your questions in the chat box on your panel of your web meeting, and we can take those questions through. I actually do already have one here. So the question is, if you're not recommending learning content libraries, what do you recommend as an LMS solution? There are actually a plethora of learning content libraries out there, sorry, LMSs out there where you can create your own content. A couple that come to mind which are really common, so Moodle and Articulate. There's a really cool company down in Dunedin called Tarn Group that have Bracken. But Casey, there is some compliant packages that make it easy to bring those into a learning experience solution such as Jemini. What's the technical term for those packages that you upload into the learning, and it's just a one-stop upload, very simple process?
Yeah. So yeah, a learning a content tool, authoring tool such as Articulate or Bracken, you then export a SCORM package. And so there's a few various versions of the SCORM package, and then that gets uploaded into Jemini and then into a learning record store. And then Jemini would then communicate back and forth. Once the user opens that content, they'll then track their time, the completion, and the progress of that learning content.
There's a question here about the trends we're seeing in the types of learning. I guess we mentioned one of them in terms of that micro learning. Did you have any other trends that we're constantly seeing, Casey?
Yeah, another one that's popping up a lot is personalized learning. So allowing the employee to, or the people to empower their own learning. So being able to choose their own pathway, or having the ability to create or request their own learning.
Cool. So look, thank you very, very much for joining today's session. Just to finish off today's session, I want to introduce you to the fuller Jemini team. I haven't quite got everybody on here. The Jemini team is really excited to bring Jemini to organisations, and the learning experience piece in Jemini is a big part of what we do for organisations and what we adopt out in organisations. A lot of the Jemini team have been in HR and payroll environments for many years. However, there's also some very new people in our team, and that's meant that we've challenged some of the older thinking in solutions that are on the market, and we've brought to the market a solution that is wonderful to use and really easy to use and to understand. Our approach to bring customers onto the learning platform and Jemini in itself is quite a different approach. It's an approach called DNA, and certainly love to have a conversation around what that is too. It's quite different to the old style scope workshops and discovery. So would be very happy to share that with you. I thought I would share with you some of the sources that Casey and I use to bring the learning webinar to you today. And there's some really, really good information out there on the web around learning, how we learn, adopting learning, and learning styles across organisations and how that's really changing. So hopefully you'll get some benefit out of some of those links there. Oops. Also, we're very happy to have a chat directly with you. You can contact me directly. There's my email address, or if you have a Fusion 5 account manager, you can contact your Fusion 5 account manager. And our website, Jemini.com, has a lot of information, and you can actually put a chat request through on the Jemini website. So thank you very much. And Casey, thank you very much for taking some of your time today to assist with what you're seeing out there in our customer environments. So Casey, have a great rest of the day, and thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Bye.